Cool, man. So you having a good time?
Always.
You having a good day so far?
Yeah, I'm having a good day.
10:12 a.m., May 24th, 2016. And breaking news, Mr. T is not dead.
He's still
He's
alive,
still
Mr.
alive.
D. Mr. T is still alive.
Thank goodness. But what am I doing?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Johnny Bean, David Nesdall.
Hey.
Hey, yeah, we're live. 10:12 a.m., May 24th, 2016, California.
Yes, I do.
Uh, Figured we would talk about OU812 real quick because today is the 28th 28th anniversary of that album.
Wow,
So
that's crazy. Time just keeps going and going and going.
yes, yeah. So yeah. So anyway, yeah. So like I said, yeah, that album was the second with Sammy Hagar, released May 24th, 1988. Um, I guess something cool for me. That was the first CD I ever bought. Actually,
Man.
when CDs came out. Hey, I actually bought a CD player so I could listen to that CD.
Really?
And that's back when a CD player was like $500 or something,
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
But it had a remote
Yeah.
control, you know.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. I remember I had just gotten my license. It was '88, and I guess I had my license for a year, and I had a Camaro with a big V8 engine in it. And I had just started going to college, to Five Towns College for music. And I remember every day traveling down this one road, the Seaford Oyster Bay Expressway, which is Route 135, to get to the school. I remember the springtime. It was springtime, and blaring that CD every day, or that cassette. It was a cassette every day, down that road, listening to that cassette.
What's a cassette?
And yeah, exactly.
Oh.
And
Oh, you mean one of
it
these
was like
things? Yes.
yeah,
One of these
yeah.
things.
I can't believe you still have one of those.
I've got a huge pile of them.
Ancient,
Yeah.
amazing. But I remember listening to those songs every day, and I never got sick of that record. Just never got sick of it, and it was poorly recorded. It just wasn't. The sound quality wasn't as good. It was a low recording. Still is, right? Or did they remaster that yet?
I think it was remastered in Japan. I think there's a Japanese release of 5150 and 0812.
Mhm.
Although, if you get the best of both worlds, double
Yeah, but
album.
I mean that's not the whole. That's not the whole CD. I like
No.
the original CD where you can hear every song. But yeah, I just remember it being low. You had to.
Hello. Is that
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah, you had
Is that
to.
Mr. T?
No, no, you had to really blast it to hear it. Because it wasn't recorded as loud as other records.
Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of people have that complaint. I hear that. I hear that a lot. For me, I never noticed. For me, I mean, it just had that 80s. It has an 80s pop production.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of reverb, very bright. And I had, like I said, the album. I bought it on CD.
Hmm.
I probably bought it. Actually, I bought it on cassette first. Did I? Man, I can't remember. I was, barely a kid. Uh, I probably bought it on cassette first, and then listened to it, and then bought it on CD, and then got a CD player just so I could listen to it on CD.
Right.
That's probably what I did. And then I had it on LP as well, vinyl. Well, I still do.
Yeah.
I still have all this stuff. But I do remember listening to that album, you know, the vinyl version of it, and it being very, very brittle sounding. If you think it's bright on the CD, listen to it on vinyl. Okay, it was very, very
Yeah,
bright.
I remember. I remember trying to think. Did I still work at the music store then? Remember working in a CD store, like it was a very small CD shop, and I think I might have still been there in '88, and I remember listening to it on vinyl there because we had records. We like I still work there. We had records and CDs. I mean, CDs had just come out in like what, '86.
I think before then, I think 80, maybe 84, maybe, but they weren't as popular.
Right, right.
Something like that.
But I remember listening to it. It was very thin sounding on vinyl.
Oh yeah, extremely,
I vaguely remember.
extremely thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then though, 1988, man, the record stores, it was great because of all the displays. You probably used to make those. You walk into a
Yeah.
record shop, all these displays of all those of the album, the flats. It
Yeah,
looks like
sure.
vinyl. It looks
Sure.
like an album cover, but it's actually just a cardboard
Yeah, yeah.
double-sided thing, and it would have the album. It would have the front of the album on one side, and this is for everything, not just OU812, and then the
Yeah.
back, it would either say the name of the band or it would say, you know, there are promotions.
Yeah, we would staple them on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
We would just, and every month we would staple the different ones that were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the record shops, they would make displays. They would cut them up, make like
Yep.
designs out of them, whatever, put them like all over, make the coolest displays, you know, back when you'd walk into a
Hmm.
record shop. These days, you rarely see that. Well, you do here and there with Amoeba records, you kind of do, um, but yeah, those specific ones though, the 0812 ones, I had a ton of those album flats because
Wow.
when that album came out, I went to the store, and when they were about ready to throw all that stuff away, I would say, "Could I have this?" So that's how I actually got a lot of cool posters back in the day, a lot of cool
Hmm.
displays. You know, I had two of those carnal knowledge cardboard displays. I don't know if you ever saw those.
Yeah, sure. Sure, I've seen them.
Thing was like this tall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I had two of those way back when, but uh, anyway, anyway.
That's
But
cool
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. 0812 though, man. I remember. Yeah, I remember buying the cassette. I remember this is of course before the internet or whatever. So I just happened to be at a mall after school or on a Saturday or something. Walked into a record shop and saw there was a new Van Halen album. You know, and this was probably in June, so this would have been after. You know, I didn't buy it the day it came out. You know, because I never knew. You know, like you're shocked. These days, you're not shocked anymore by stuff like that. These days,
Right.
everybody tells you
Yeah.
like right away.
Yeah.
Everybody tells you the ending of
Hmm.
Star Wars or whatever, you know, and it's like, oh,
I know it's horrible.
and which you still haven't seen it,
Spoiler alert.
you know. Spoiler alerts, yes,
Yeah.
yes, but yeah,
Yeah.
oh, eight one
Yeah, I
two.
still haven't seen. I still haven't seen the new Star Wars.
Oh, you got to
Still
see
haven't
it,
seen
dude.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll see it.
you can download it now.
I'll see
You
it.
can rent it on iTunes. You can just rent it on your iPad and just watch it.
Yeah. Or
Uh,
probably just watch it on YouTube.
yeah, the spoilers, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, the fan films or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. I remember walking to that music shop at the mall, looking through the stuff, seeing there's a new Van Halen album. Whoa, you know, and just being like, oh, and 0812. Yeah, and I probably bought it right there. I probably bought the cassette is what I probably did because I wouldn't have had a CD player at
Hmm.
the time. And then I do remember buying that CD and then getting a CD player just so I could listen to that on CD as well.
Wow,
You know,
that's cool.
but
That's cool. That's back when everyone thought CDs were like the best thing in the world.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah, yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that tour. Let's talk about the gear and the tour and your memories. You did see them on that tour, right?
That was the first time I ever saw them. First time, and the same record shop where I saw the display of the album and everything. I remember there being a big display or a promo or something for the Monsters of Rock tour, because at the time I lived in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the closest they were coming was Kansas City. I would say Kansas City for the Monsters of Rock, because for those of you who don't know, there was actually 2 tours for that album. There was the Monsters of Rock tour, the summer of '88, right? The summer.
Yeah.
And then after that, they did like a 45-day tour themselves for OU812, which the opener was this band called Private Life that Eddie was producing.
Private Life. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I had that cassette as well. Still do. I have both those albums.
They were horrible. They were horrible. That band was not good.
Well, it was 80s rock, pop,
Yeah.
But yeah, that album was produced by Eddie. Was it Eddie and Templeman or Eddie and Don Landy?
Oh, I don't remember. I think it was Eddie and Don Landy.
I think it was Eddie and Templeman, maybe. I don't know. Anybody know? Anybody watching this know? Leave in the comments below if you know who produced the 2 Private Life albums. It was Eddie and somebody else, either Templeman or Landy. But yeah. So the Monsters of Rock tour, they were gonna be like where I lived, Kansas City, like July of '88 or something. And I remember thinking, oh man, I want to go see them. But at the time, I was like this tall, and it was whatever. Although I know people who went to the Monsters of Rock shows, and apparently it was like a 10-hour event. Unless you were unless you were super into it, you're out there in the sun, 10 hours. Van Halen doesn't come on till they were the last act, so you're like totally dead by the time they came on.
Yeah. The only 2 bands that I enjoyed were Dokken and Van Halen at the time, because I hated Metallica. I know I'm going to get all kinds of hate mail because I don't like Metallica, but Kingdom Come. Who cares? Who cares about Kingdom Come? The Scorpions were cool, but I wasn't a huge Scorpions fan.
Templeman. Okay, Kenneth says it's Templeman. Yes. Thank you, Kenneth.
Okay, cool. It's so cool. Yeah, but I didn't have I was pretty far away for the Monsters, but I want to say 3rd or 4th row for the OU812 tour afterwards, and I was so close to this guitar. Ridiculous how close I was to seeing this guitar. And
that's awesome.
It was changing. It was amazing. Life changing, like similar to the way it was in '81, my first concert when I first saw them. Because I didn't know of this type of music back then. In '81, I was like, what's going on? Look at this guy with the red guitar, and look at the ladies lifting their shirts. It's just ridiculous. I was 11 years old. I didn't know, but and I've seen them from every tour after that. But OU812, I was so close that it was almost like I could shake his hand. And it was unbelievable. The sound coming off the stage was unbelievable. This guitar that close up, and this was my absolute favorite guitar on the planet. Like everyone who grew up in that era. And to see it, see this guy playing this guitar where you could reach out if you really wanted to, and you could, when he's up at the edge of the stage and you could just barely touch. It was insane. I remember the sound of the band, because I was so close that I heard the stage volume more than I heard the house volume.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I want to say it was deafening, and it was so cool. It was just, what a rush. What a rush. It was incredible. and those are my fondest memories of that tour.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
What venue
Still,
was it?
they would Nassau Coliseum in Long Island, in
Mm-hmm.
Uniondale.
Because the OU812 tour itself was indoors
Yeah.
because it was
Yes.
winter. It was
Right.
wintertime. Monsters of Rock was, stadiums. Yeah, well, yeah. When I saw them November 5th, 1988, Lincoln, Nebraska, Devaney Coliseum or Sports Center,
Yeah.
Devaney Sports Center, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I remember I bought the tour book. I remember reading the tour book, thinking, "Oh man, I can't believe I'm going to see these guys." Can't believe, it was
Yeah.
my first time, my first show, right? So I
Yeah.
remember looking through the tour book, sitting there waiting, and just being like, "Oh." And then Private Life performed, and then I thought it was cool because after they played, in between Private Life and Van Halen, I saw the bass player walk by. Private Life, and I'm like, "Oh, that's that dude who was just on stage."
That's
And then of
cool.
course Van Halen
Yeah.
started.
Back in those days, when you saw a rock star, it was like, you're starstruck, even if you didn't really know the band. Oh my God, they were just on stage. Yeah, yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
I
that's
get it.
happened. That's happened to me too. I
Yeah.
played. We were on. I was on tour with the Mayfire. We were in what was that place? It was like this huge like theater. I can't remember where this was, but I remember after we played. Oh no, this was in Chicago. This was in Chicago. After we played, I remember walking through the audience. Same kind of deal. And I remember hearing kids pointing and saying, "Hey, that guy was just playing. That guy was just a guitar player." Same deal. Same deal. So
Yeah.
I'd give him a guitar pick. Hey, whatever picks I had, my picks.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure. Sure.
and by the way, anybody watching this, if you want a guitar pick, I'll send you a guitar pick. But message me an address where to send it, and I'll send you one. There's my shameless plug. Uh, well, I just sent out like 10 picks yesterday, so it reminded me. So anyway, what OU812? Yes, it was. So yeah, Devaney Sports Center, Lincoln, Nebraska. Uh, a cool little known fact: people who are fans of Van Halen News Desk, the guy that runs that, Jeff, he was there at that same. We were at the same show because
Very cool.
he lived one town north or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
we talked on the phone like a couple years later, and I remember we were talking about that show and how we wished that there was a bootleg of that show. There's no known bootleg at all of the show I was at. Lincoln, Nebraska,
Yeah, mine neither.
November 5th,
Mine neither.
1988.
I don't even remember the date. I don't even remember the date that my show was. That's can't remember.
I still have the ticket stub,
Wow.
and they were cool. They were cool back then.
You're a fan.
Back then, the ticket stub it actually has glitter all over it. Where is it?
Wow.
It's somewhere, but yeah, it's actually cool. You look at it and it's all glittery. So if you touch it, glitter still comes off. 28 years
That's
later
crazy.
or whatever. But of course, so in 1986, 87, I did not see 5150 tour. I missed it. I basically became a fan right when that was going on, whatever. But of course, I grew up watching Live Without a Net, the home video.
Mhm.
So once, when I'm sitting there watching the OU812 show in person, it was very similar to Live Without a Net, somewhat.
Yeah.
Very, very similar. Same, mostly, some of the same tunes, but I
Same
do.
gear. Ed's using the same gear. He dressed differently, but it was the same gear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of clothes, yeah, I remember Eddie was wearing two different Converse shoes at this show. He was either
Oh,
wearing.
I don't remember what shoes he wore, but I remember him wearing a pair of blue jeans.
You were closer than I was.
And,
I was way in the back. I was
I
way
wasn't
in the
looking
back.
at his shoes. I wasn't looking at his shoes. I was looking at his hands and the guitar. I can't remember what his shoes were. I remember he was wearing blue jeans and a black wife beater.
He was wearing blue jeans when I saw them, and then the shirt. It was like a striped. It was like a striped shirt, like white and black
Oh yeah,
stripes.
the red and white striped shirt that was kind of like a half shirt.
Well, it was black and white.
Oh, okay.
There's photos. There's photos of him wearing almost the same outfit on that tour.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was wearing two different Converse. I want to say one red, one yellow, maybe. Something like that. David Wolfgang, yo. Hey Johnny, I'm watching you from the UK. Finally getting to catch you live. Yes. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah,
Hey, what's up,
we
Dave?
pop in from time to time. Early. It's just we're doing this for you, so you guys know. Yeah, we're doing this right now because it's the anniversary of this album. I just heard, and I'm not going to be around late. I have to split in like an hour and a half, so I won't be here. So this Monday, Wednesday, Friday thing is just out the window. Just whenever we want to do these things, we just jump on.
Well, this is like a special report. That's all. It's not a normally scheduled one.
Yes, and also special report: Mr. T is not dead.
Okay.
David Wolfgang.
All right.
Yeah, we jump on this thing. Nesdall's like, Johnny, did you hear Mr. T's dead? And I'm like, dude, wait a minute. I didn't hear about it. I love watching the live in Tokyo from the OU812 tour on YouTube. David Wolfgang says, Ed looks and plays awesome. Hello to David, too. Hope you're well.
Thank you. Yes.
David Wolfgang. Well. Do you know David Wolfgang?
What's that?
Do you know David? Do you know David?
Yeah, we're Facebook buddies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see. Cool, man. What else? Which is this? Oh, Brent. What's up, VH Brothers? Yo, Brent, man. Yeah, we figured we would just jump on here, talk about OU812 a little bit. If any of you guys have any comments, you can message me on Facebook or comment on Facebook wherever you saw this video or on this video itself on YouTube. And yeah, even when we're not live, you can comment your stories about this album. When you first heard this album, when you first bought it, if you first saw the tour, kind of like what we're doing here. Yeah. I remember though when I saw them, yeah, it was my first show, my first Van Halen show ever. So of course it was amazing. You know, it was just incredible. And
yeah, I'm sure.
And a couple things I do remember. I remember at the end of the show, I remember there was a tray, like a table tray, a trable.
Right.
Hey, Alan Garber. Alan wants to jump in here real quick.
It's gonna have to be real quick because I don't have that much time.
Yeah, real quick. Here we go. Okay, Alan. Anyway, there was a tray with Jack Daniels bottles sitting on it, you know, for Michael Anthony. And I remember at the very end, Eddie, like last song, Eddie running around, jumping around, and he kicks the thing over.
That's funny.
And then the one thing I do remember that I tell people sometimes, I do remember at the very, very end of the show, Eddie takes off the 5150, throws it clear across the stage. And I was like, you know, and then Zeke Clark, a hand pops out of the side, grabs it. It was totally cool. You know, I'd never seen him throw a guitar like that or that guitar, you know, just
that's
clear across
the stage. The second time. That's the second time that I've seen that happen. Well, I didn't see. I've only seen it happen once, but that's the second time I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm. David Wolfgang.
Didn't Zeke drop the guitar once?
There's a show on. There's one of the shows. Eddie goes to toss it to him, and he gets caught in the strap, and he drops it on the ground. Hey, Alan.
Hey, guys.
Hey, man.
What's going on, Alan?
Hey, pretty serendipitous. My daughter literally just fell asleep, and I turned on my smart TV, which is what I do a lot. Is if I see you guys have something going, I'll just watch it on the TV while I'm. You know, that's what I was doing the other day when I had gotten off and y'all were still talking. and I was kind of answering, talking to you on via Facebook, but I was like vacuuming and cleaning toilets while the TV was playing.
Right.
There's nothing like looking at you guys in a glorious 65-inch Samsung TV in full HD. It's great.
Beautiful. You sound like you're in a helicopter right now.
Oh, brother, here we go with this terrible internet again. Yeah, my hear about it later intro lesson clip thing that we did was just so god awful, man. Should I jump out and try to get back in, or am I just doomed in?
Yeah, try it.
Yeah.
It.
Okay, I'll hang up and get right back in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, his thing, it wasn't as awful as he's saying it is. It really wasn't.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alan Garber.
Alan Garbled.
No, it sounded, but just now, didn't it sound like he was in a helicopter?
It was bad. Yeah, I was about to say something. Yeah. Normally, if you're on the radio, if you're calling the radio, they're just like, okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
But no, we love Alan. So jump back in here, hurry.
Too much time.
We have to leave. But so what was I saying? So anyway, yeah, that was my first tour, OU812. Amazing. And of course, after that, 3 years later, Carnal Knowledge came out, and by that time, I was right on top of everything. There was no internet, but there was all the magazines. I bought that album the day it came out. I knew when it was coming out. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see which computer am I on here. Yeah. What about the songs, man? Mine All Mine. I always love that tune, man.
I love that song. Solo in that's great.
Yep.
Solo in that song it's a masterpiece. But my favorite song, well, I have a few favorites, but Cabo Wabo is probably my favorite song on that record.
Mm-hmm.
Just that riff, it's crazy, and I like it's just what a killer rock song. Sucker in a 3-piece, just all the guitar on that record, other than the ballads, all the guitar on that record is genius. It really is.
Don't like ballads?
And they have their place, but as far as like good rockin' songs, I mean that album has some great rockin' songs on it.
Mm-hmm.
Great, some of his best ideas. Yeah, some of his best ideas. Wasn't AFU on the Wildlife?
Yes.
Or part of it?
Yeah.
So I mean, come on, he used that. I mean, AFU, that song doesn't suck.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, AFU. I believe that was used during the party scene at the end of the film, The Wildlife. Yeah. When they knocked down the wall, they put the plume on the microwave. Anybody, if you've ever seen that movie?
That's right.
Eddie did the entire soundtrack. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, to me,
it's great stuff.
I mean,
great stuff. I mean, even Apolitical Blues. Come on. I mean, that was an off-the-cuff blues song that they were just messing with. It was just a one-take messed with thing, and it came up with this cool song. It's a great song.
Kenneth says he loves the.
He plays a great slide guitar on that. It's amazing.
Yeah, they did. They played live for that one, except there was some overdubs because of the piano.
Right.
Eddie on the piano.
But I mean, that's true. But I mean, there's
a Sammy overdub as well.
The whole thing was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they actually recorded that, like they recorded records like back in the 30s or whatever, with 2 microphones hanging. Yo.
Hey, am I robotic still,
Perfect.
or can you hear me?
Awesome.
No, we hear you perfectly now.
Great. You know what? I was using Google Chrome, and it says that it works better with Internet Explorer, so I tried going in with Internet Explorer. Maybe that helps.
That's weird, because Google Plus and Google Chrome, that's the same thing. That's so weird.
Beats me. I blame my internet.
Yeah.
So
you
yeah,
look
so
and
you guys,
sound great.
I didn't get to see. How long have you guys been on?
Probably.
15 minutes?
Huh?
Oh, great.
No, it's been longer than that.
Really?
I think it's been like 40.
Well, oh, really? That long?
It's close. It's over half an hour. Yeah, because
Wow.
you said you were
Well,
available
yeah,
about 10
Alan,
o'clock.
we don't have that much time. We don't have that much time because Johnny's got a split, and my roommate and his bandmate are gonna have a impromptu rehearsal here in my living room. So, and you know, while they're just waiting for me to get off here. So.
Oh, gotcha. Well, I just thought I'd jump on since it just so
Yeah.
happened my daughter fell right asleep right when I noticed you were on. So
Oh, cool.
jump on.
So we're talking about the out of the 28th anniversary of OU812. So
Right.
that's what we're talking about.
Right. Well, I don't know how much you guys got into. I mean, for me, the OU812 album is the last Van Halen album. I mean, that's just kind of how I roll. It's just the moment that he stopped using Kramers and stopped using the Frankenstein, as a main instrument, really, I don't know. I just couldn't really fall in love with anything that came after. I know you guys are all about all the, the EVH gear and the signature guitars, and they're cool guitars. They're just not my bag, not my, not my favorite tones that he's ever come up with. Although there's neat things on the later albums that I can point to, like the Judgment Day tray table solo thing. I like that, and there's a couple of little things that I can point to that I do like.
And that was done on a Kramer. That was done on
that
the
was
1550.
Yeah,
That's why you like
the last song that was recorded with.
Well, correct.
And,
I mean, most of the stuff that I like that came from later albums was stuff that they actually did on earlier albums, so or tours.
But check this out. Also, Year to the Day on Van Halen 3, that song was done on the 84 guitar.
Oh, he played the 1984 Kramer for that recording?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Wow. Yeah, there's all kinds of little things on the later albums that I can appreciate. I can appreciate the quality of in general of the Ernie Ball Music Man guitars, and I take a little issue with the wah-wah that came later. I feel like Jerry Cantrell turned him on to the wah-wah, and he never stopped using the wah-wah, and I was like, oh.
Carl.
And I'm a wah-wah fan, but not on
He does use it a bit much.
Yeah, and the neck pickup,
he kind of went. He does use the wah a bit much.
Yeah, like the neck pickup.
Yeah, but the thing is, I don't know. I have
well,
no
so
problem
I'll get off
and
trashing the rest of the album. My point was that I like OU812 because to me it's the last of the albums that I really, really like. So to me there's a lot of great material on it. When I was doing my little hear about it later intro thing, that was another. I had mentioned like Finish What You Started is another of the couple of songs. That song, it features the Strat with the out of phase Mark Knopfler pickup selection entirely. Best of Both Worlds was another one that the main guitar was a Strat with that tone, that pickup selection and that general tone. There was OU812 was the last one. When me and Kevin Dodds were in high school, we were friends, but we had a sort of a somewhat friendly competition going on in terms of like who would learn. I mean, I probably took it more seriously than he did because he was playing in a band and really working at that. But when OU812 came out, I remember going, "Oh, I'm going to figure out this entire album before you." So like, which. It's not like the most difficult album. If you know how to play almost all the other material, you can pretty much play what's on OU812. There wasn't like a lot of guitar revolution happening on that record, but there was some really good stuff. I mean, as you know, I love the When It's Love solo, another example of the Sitting on Top of the World Clapton lick being executed perfectly and beautifully by Eddie using that sort of, using another standard Strat with the neck pickup going, and that's that's my favorite single moment on the entire album is that solo. It's just beautiful. I love that.
Well, are we sure that's a Strat? Because I know he's got a Kramer with two humbuckers in it at that time.
Yes, it's a Strat. He's mentioned that in interviews. I know it's mentioned it's somewhere in the Inside magazine, and it's in Guitar Man. I think they mention it, and I'm pretty sure that he actually does specifically say in one of the Guitar World interviews from around that time. I can't remember it, but it's definitely it's a hardtail, or it's a Stratocaster setup hardtail without the tremolo. I'm not sure if I think it may be because he has a couple of them. I'm not sure if it's the best of both worlds maple neck Strat. It might be the other. I think he has a rosewood neck Sunburst Strat and maybe another maple neck Sunburst Strat.
He has a
It's a vintage Strat.
He has a '64 rosewood Sunburst.
Yeah, that's the one with the 5150 scraped.
That he scratched
right?
5150 into.
Right.
But that has a tremolo, I think. That has a tremolo on it.
Well, they all have the standard Fender tremolos on it, but the Strats he set them up Clapton style, where he blocked the tremolo and it was pulled all the way back, and he didn't use the bar. As far as I know. I mean, when you see him playing that guitar at Cabo Wabo, that one with, I think he has the Telecaster neck on it.
Has a tele neck on it, and a tele headstock. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. That's
a different guitar.
That's a hardtail. He's not using the bar, at that point. I mean, I think he got tired of fiddling with the standard Fender tremolo, although he did so well with it for the first and second albums, keeping it in tune, and I love that aspect of his playing, but. Yeah, the Strat was really cool. I'm not sure which one, but it's definitely a Sunburst Strat. Yeah, does it say When It's Love on there?
It says he used it for Finish What You Started.
Okay.
This one.
I'm gonna say odds are he might have used that one for When It's Love as well, but it could have been one of the Maple Neck Sunburst Strats, Yeah, and then there's a couple of other unusual guitars. I know the one we've talked about it before, the Fender Electric 12. Which is actually a Telecaster with a Fender Electric 12 neck and a Fender Electric 12 bridge, but it's like a mutt of a Telecaster and a Fender 12 neck that he used on Cabo Wabo. That's the main guitar on
and
Cabo
I think
Wabo.
Sammy used that. Sammy used that for his guitar solo that year.
He used a similar one.
Yeah, there were two of them.
Sammy had a white one. A white one. The one that Alan's talking about, I believe Eddie used live maybe for Cabo Wabo.
He may have down in.
No,
did he play that in?
No, he played Cabo Wabo on this.
Okay.
Because of the solo?
The 5150 guitar was a part of the mix on the recording. I mean, the Fender 12 is the main guitar, but underneath that, I think through a lot of the song is also the six-string, the Kramer 5150, I think is the likely other guitar on there, perhaps. I mean, that's sort of a mystery, but I hear a regular six-string electric guitar in there. And then, of course, that was the first time that I believe he ever used a wah-wah on a Van Halen record was Cabo Wabo. He used it.
The solo, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just as a filter. It's not with the wah-wah effect. It's kind of the filter sound. He just put it in a notch where he liked it and left it, like Michael Schenker or any number of people do.
Or Knopfler, Money for Nothing. That's how they did that as well.
Right. Accenting certain frequencies. Of course, some people do it with it, like Knopfler does it a little bit back with a little more bass to give it some that honking sound. And then like Jimmy Page would use it in the full treble position for Communication Breakdown and Whole Lotta Love. He did that. So Eddie kind of did it somewhere in the middle. I think kind of more like Michael Schenker, where it's the accenting the mid-range frequencies in it. So that was a really neat thing. There were a couple of songs to me where they started repeating themselves a bit, like Sucker in a Three-Piece is Panama, essentially. As Eddie even said, it's a Panama-type beat. When the album came out, he called it that, and it's similar to Panama. I think there's some some really good songs. Black and Blue is a fun song.
It's a good song.
Continuing with that heavy harmonizer chorus, wet, dry, wet, stereo, detune, whatever you want to call it. That's a cool sound. Black and Blue was the first single. I remember buying the 45.
I bought it too. Yep.
The 45 was great because I'm a Little Feat fan, and Little Feat were also produced by Don Landy and Ted Templeman, and this was also the last Van Halen album. Well, they came back later. I think, did they do the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge? Did Ted?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but this was really, OU812 was really the last one where I think where Ted and Don worked. I don't know. I think
Together.
Ted and Don worked more on OU812.
It was the last one with Don.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and who knows how much work Ted actually did. I mean, there's debate on what was Landy and what was Ted on all the albums. I mean, some people might go so far as to say that Don did everything and Ted was just there to do Dave's vocals and help him with arranging the vocals and and giving suggestions on arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
I believe that. I'm from that camp. I believe that.
yeah.
I mean,
That's my understanding from all the other interviews I've read about the relationship with Ted, Don, and Ed. Was that. I mean, that was how the songs got written, really. Dave would do vocals, and Ted would just work exclusively with Dave, and then put stuff together with what Eddie had recorded, and Eddie and Don were the team that kind of worked out the actual music. And to me, I think Don really did the real nuts and bolts of the engineering and production. Not just the engineering, but the actual production and the space, the mix, and all that kind of stuff. So I think Ted's less and less of a role as the albums progressed from the first album through 1984, and then of course it was just Eddie and Don, and then a little bit of Mick Jones, who barely did anything on 5150, and then they got Ted and Don back for OU812.
Yeah.
But yeah, OU812.
Well, if you talk to Mick Jones,
no, go ahead.
If you talk to Mick Jones about it, he thinks he pretty much discovered Van Halen again.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous. And you know what? You know how we can easily say that, because I think the three of us and Rob and Eric Broadbent and all the people, Kevin Dodds, we've all heard the Dawn of 5150 bootleg, which was essentially the entire album in a rough form, where almost all the music was already recorded. I mean, it's they didn't do very much polishing to those demos. I mean, they're almost exactly like the entire record turned out to be.
I think I Want Action should have been on that record, though.
Yeah, that's a cool tune. Yeah, I like that too. But the OU812, the reason why I brought up that 45 was one of the really rare instances where Van Halen actually put a non-album B-side on a single, was their cover of Little Feat's Apolitical Blues, which was a great, Little Feat may have been a single back when Little Feat did it, I'm not sure, but it's a really cool Little Feat song that was, pretty much written, I think it was written by Richie Hayward and Lowell George, maybe Billy Payne, but I'm a huge Little Feat fan. I love their album, Waiting for Columbus is one of the greatest live albums that's ever been made. Although there's a lot of doctoring to it, it's a great album that features the Tower Power horns. Obviously, Lenny Pickett from Saturday Night Live Band played with Tower Power, and he's on that record. It was produced by that record is just a fun thing. For any Van Halen fans, you want to kind of go off the beaten path a little bit. If you're not familiar with Little Feat, listen to Waiting for Columbus. It's really one of the great ones. It's right up there with to me, it's up there with like Frampton Comes Alive and Cheap Trick at the Budokan and Earth, Wind and Fire's live album, which was also produced by the same guys that produced with Little Feat's Waiting for Columbus. So that was pretty neat, and I think that was just something that, since Ted and Don had produced them, it was just something, and Sammy liked Little Feat too, and he liked the song, and that was a real loose thing, and I think Eddie was playing possibly that red Airline Rezoglass guitar that he holds up on the cover with all the other guitars. Yeah, and which was sort of a precursor to Jack White using that style guitar on most of his recordings. But that had a really kind of neat nasally sound, and Eddie is playing slide on it, kind of half-assed slide. It's kind of it's a drunken jam kind of thing. It's not super polished.
Yeah, but still pretty damn good.
I agree. That's a really cool song. It's a cool song, and it's a neat thing for Van Halen to have actually put out, a non-album goof around cover. It's very, very unusual for them to do that.
Well, that was on the record. That was on the record.
It wasn't on the LP. It was on the CD.
It was on the.
only,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't. It wasn't on
I
the
bought
cassette or the LP. It was just the CD.
Correct.
Bonus track.
Well, it was on, and again, it was on the B side of that 45 of Black and Blue.
Mm-hmm. I had
And
that as well.
that I
I had the
remember.
cassette version of that.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing it first on that.
The single.
The single. Yes.
The single.
That's what I had. I still have it. You know.
So yeah, I bought the LP, and I bought the LP shortly after I got the single of Black and Blue, and I you know, a lot of the licks and stuff were very similar to what was on 5150 in 1984 and all that kind of other stuff. So I sat down and kind of worked out everything. I didn't have an electric 12 string. I didn't even have a chorus pedal. So when I figured out Cabo Wabo, that was a mysterious song. I didn't even know what the hell was going on there. I read the interviews, but I was like, I can't get this tone for shit. But then I forgot. But anyway, I couldn't get the 12-string sound very good or fake it. And of course, like whatever it is, 20 some years later, I've finally got a vintage Fender Electric 12, and I can kind of get that sound a little bit. You know, OU812 is probably I'll say it's my least favorite Van Halen album but I like it a lot, and it's still one of the ones that I do appreciate. I appreciate that album. You know, some people draw the line with David Lee Roth, and they're like, well, I don't listen to any Van Halen after that. You know, but to me, 5150 and OU812 are still classic Van Halen albums to me. I think those are albums where I feel like Sammy did his best work. 5150, I feel, was Sammy's best Van Halen album, and OU812, like, I think had some good songwriting on it. You know, Finish What You Started is really cool. I think there's quality stuff on that album. People might say When It's Love is like a schmaltzy love song, but I like it. It's a good power pop song. There's nothing wrong with it to me, and it's great.
Nothing wrong with love songs, man. There's nothing wrong with making a little money.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a keyboard song, but you know, like I said, to me that song is graced with one of Eddie's most beautiful solos and his most overt homage to Eric Clapton, I think. Mine All Mine is another song that I think is just incredible. That's a really neat fusion-y, neat thing going on with what Alex is doing, and the patch or whatever the keyboard sounds that Eddie came up with for that tune is really interesting. You know,
the rhythm guitar parts. The rhythm guitar parts to that song is very similar to Push Come to Shove.
Yeah, and I like the way that the song is mixed to where those guitar parts kind of blend with the synthesizer parts, and it creates something that's very different in the Van Halen catalog. That, to me, is like one of their most fusion-type songs. It's cool, and again, Alex's beat is unusual on that. Like, he doesn't really, I don't remember him doing a beat like that before, quite like that before or since. The solo's really great, just a lot of little, a lot of squealing and stuff, but I think it's a really off-kilter, unusual solo. You know, it's not like a virtuoso solo, but it fits perfectly, and it's
well, it's pretty. It's memorable. It's got a lot of memorable parts. The solo in that song is actually a song in itself.
Absolutely. Well, I say not virtuoso. It's virtuoso to me in the sense that it's well constructed and not an obvious solo. Like, you know.
It's not like all technical speedboat crap.
Right. Right. It's just that's a beautiful song. I think a very underrated song in the catalog. Mine on Mine is, to me, one of their really best songs.
Mm-hmm. It was awesome when they opened up the Right Here Right Now tour with that song.
Yes.
They hit the stage playing Mine on Mine. It was amazing.
Well, I don't know if you guys got to see. David, you saw the Monsters of Rock OU812 material live, right?
Yes.
Yeah. See, I didn't get to see that tour. My buddy Kevin Dodds did. He went to see the Monsters of Rock in Dallas. He drove up from Houston, where we lived, and Kevin went and saw that show, with Kingdom Come and Metallica and all that hoo-ha. And,
I saw that at the Meadowlands. In Jersey, and then I saw the OU812 afterwards in the winter at the Nassau Coliseum here on Long Island. So I saw them twice that year, and it was just ridiculous. Although by the time they got on at Monsters of Rock, I had enough because I really couldn't take most of the stuff from that day. I was just telling Johnny before you got on, the only two bands that I really enjoyed was Dokken and Van Halen. Scorpions was cool, but I was never really a big Scorpions fan. I hate Metallica, and who cares about Kingdom Come, really?
Yeah, I like Kingdom Come for the joke factor. You know, as a
they were good the first time around when they were Led Zeppelin.
Right. I mean, I probably look back at them and I don't hate them as much now as I did when they came out. It's kind of funny to hear their two songs. You know, they had the one song that was essentially you know, the rewrite of the Kashmir thing, Get It On.
Yeah, Get It On. Get It On, yeah.
Yeah, which was, you know, had elements of a lot of Zeppelin material in that song, and then they had their song that was sort of a Since I've Been Loving You takeoff, and they were fun. I'm a fan of the Scorpions. I would have liked to have seen that show, but maybe you could tell me the OU812 was a peculiar album. You know, the band started fracturing, I think, at that point. You know, Sammy's voice was not as good as it was. You know, he really pushed it too hard on 5150, I feel, and by the time of that tour, you know, Sammy's voice was starting to get pretty torn and was losing the top end of his range, but he was still singing, you know, relatively well at that point.
And they were still tuned to concert pitch.
Yes.
At that point, they were still in 440. Yeah.
Absolutely. Maybe you can speak on, because you might know it better than I do. I feel like that tour was a very shortened tour, and it was just the big state. It was Monsters of Rock was the main meat and potatoes tour behind the album in the States. Then they went to Japan, which we see the video from the Tokyo show on YouTube. We can all see that. And then they came back and they did another large stadium outdoor, a couple. I mean, I don't know how many. It seemed like it was an abridged tour. Like it wasn't anywhere near as thorough and long as the 5150 tour. Am I correct?
Well, I don't think they did stadium. Did they even do stadiums when they came back? I thought it was just arenas.
No, it was arenas. It was 45 shows.
Okay.
In the winter.
That's a lot. That's not very short. That's a lot.
It is, but they played way more than that on 5150.
Yeah, but they didn't do a summer tour, you know, like a Monsters of Rock as well. So, you know, you got to think that was, even though they were by themselves pretty much, they had already been on the road for what, 6 months or longer.
Yeah.
It was time, you know. It was time.
Yeah, they didn't get much of a break there between 5150 and OU812.
And they still they didn't have a short set. They played for over 2 hours at Monsters of Rock, and they played for over 2 hours on the tour afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they were long shows.
Yeah, reading Sammy's book, you know, Sammy was starting to grow tired of the band at that point, and he disliked doing those arenas. You know, it wasn't fun for him, and I think it was also that his voice was beginning to I think he was just beginning to become fatigued, and he was realizing that his voice, you know, couldn't take singing that high, that hard for that long. And I don't know. If you read his book, you know, the people can take it or leave it or however you want. But you know, I think at least in that assessment, I feel like, to me, it sounded like he was honest. It was sort of the beginning of the ending of the band. You know, that to me, that was where, according to Sammy, like Alex's drinking became like super, really like off the charts. It's kind of interesting to read, you know, Sammy's perspective on what happened on that tour. Nobody else, you know, Eddie and Alex never done an interview where they talk about that tour really. I mean, it just seems like it was.
Yeah. Well, you can tell that Alex's drinking was bad, because you can really tell on some of those shows. Even now, you know, you can tell when you listen back to the Japan '89. you can really hear his tempos changing. He's not as good, on that tour. He's not as good as he is because he's a great drummer. He's one of my favorite drummers, but you can really hear his tempo, changing a bit within the songs. And
yeah. Also, he also had to adjust to playing to the click track songs because that also was the first tour where they started significantly using sampled instruments. The keyboards were all sampled, and by the time I'm not sure if they started using the sampled background vocals on the Monsters of Rock tour, but they definitely were using sampled background vocals on the Japan tour. If we go by that Tokyo show, unless they went back and re-recorded the backing vocals, but I believe that they were actually using sampled backing vocals on the Japan shows.
Well, during Mine All Mine,
go ahead.
Listen to the background vocals, and they're directly from the album.
Yeah.
You can even hear Sammy singing them himself while he's singing the leads.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the Tokyo show is really the only record we have of a full OU812 era show.
It's produced though. It's produced because I have bootlegs of OU812. Those shows with live vocals.
Okay.
So I would say it was for that show production wise.
Okay. Well, they did actually go on to use sampled background vocals on the remainder of their tours. I mean, even Michael Anthony, who still had a good voice, his range was starting to decrease, certainly by OU812. I mean, he wasn't able to pull off the perfection background vocals like he had done through all the Dave years and through the 5150 tour. So I think there was just a lot of grind going on with the band, and and of course Eddie's problems were kind of starting to show up, and the playing on the part of all of them was starting to slide, I believe, at that point. But that's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is like it's the last gasp of them being at a technical high that they didn't reach again for a long time. Like certainly Eddie as a player, I don't think got back to that level until the last tour, like until as we talked about after his hand surgery and after him getting clean. I mean, what's your opinions on that?
I think there's a lot of good stuff. I don't agree with you there. I think there's some stuff. There's a lot of great stuff on the Carnal Knowledge tour that I mean, his playing was still great then. I think that there's some good and some bad on balance. 2004 and 2007 were bad. That was the worst of it. But I think maybe because you don't like the choice of guitar and amplifier that he used, I think maybe it's, I'm not going to say clouding your judgment on his ability, but I think because you don't like what he's using, you're a little.
I'm predisposed to not liking.
You're not being objective. You're not being as objective because you don't like the gear he's using. So
that may be fair to say. Yeah, that may be fair to say. I mean, that could enter into the picture in my judgment. I mean, I just didn't connect with them on an emotional or musical level like after that. And the tone certainly plays into it. And but going back to OU812, it's definitely it's like the end of an era. To me, it's the last one with Don. So again, to me, it's like classic Van Halen. To me, is a lot about Don. There's a certain sound and something. I don't know what it is, but it's Don is he's the fifth member of Van Halen. I mean, he had a lot to do with arranging, writing. In terms of like Eddie puking out a bunch of riffs and Don and Ted to a certain degree, but also like Don helping him put together parts and guiding him. You know, so
Yeah.
I
Hey,
don't
listen,
know if you got a blaze there, David. I'm hearing your folks coming in.
yeah, I know. I got to cut this short now because they're gonna start rehearsing any second now, and I'm kind of like in their way.
Cool.
So
And you guys were on quite a while before I got on, and I just babbled on a bit. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's okay. It's all good. We appreciate you coming on, and we respect what you say. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. It's
always
always
fun.
great.
It's always a good time.
Cool.
Sweet.
Well, hey, Dave.
Guys.
Dave, I'll call you later, man. Or
Yeah.
Are you
yeah.
gonna be
I'm gonna
around?
split. You guys keep going on. I'll be here
Well,
until
I
about
gotta
5
leave
o'clock.
too.
Well-
I have to go up to Walnut Creek.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'll talk to you guys later.
All right.
Cool. All right. See you, Dave.
Take care.
Cool. Yeah. Man, yeah. Well, OU812, that was the first album I bought brand new. Was it?
Okay.
Well, no, 5150 I got when it first came out, but the first show I ever saw was OU812 myself.
Oh, okay.
So and he was, using the Kramer 5150.
Yeah.
I actually got to see that guitar live. Couldn't believe it. That was my favorite guitar for a lot of years.
Yeah, it's pretty mind blowing to have seen. My as we've talked about before, my buddy Kevin Dodds. He saw the 1984 tour, which is amazing to me. I wish I could have seen that show. Kevin and I are exactly the same age, but his older brother, who's no longer with us, but his older brother had taken him to that show and lots of other shows. But he brought his I think his brother Brandon was he might have been 16 or 17, and Kevin was like 11, maybe 10. I mean, he was super young, to go in and see. I think he was 11 when he saw 1984, and then I saw the 5150 tour in Austin, Texas, at the Frank Irwin Center in October of '86, and I got, and I'd mentioned this before when I was chatting when we had Kevin on, but that my mom, I used some of my birthday money and stuff that I'd saved up, and my mom pitched in the rest, which was most of it, but she got me 2 third row center seats for that show. And back then you could get them for $250 a piece, which is, a lot of money, but not, pretty much back then $250 was like the hottest concerts, the best seats, like right in the first 3 rows in the center were about $250 each from a scalper. And I got that. And I went up before the show. My mother was really nice because she had a cheap seat that she went and sat at, so me and my then girlfriend could go. So I was like playing grown up, I was 11 or I was 11 or 12 with my girlfriend, and I went up and talked to Zeke Clark, and Zeke gave me a pick, the one, of course, the white one that said 5150 on the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I treasure that to this day. It was very kind of him to do that and give that to a dumb little kid. The Guitar for the Practicing Musician article where you see all of the striped Kramers underneath the stage and Zeke holding one of those Kramers. That had come out just prior to that show. So I was like, oh, Zeke, I saw you in Guitar for the Practicing Musician. Like, I knew who he was, and like at that point nobody knew who the hell he was. So I think that was I was playing to his ego so I could get a pick, one of those kind of things. But, yeah.
I remember seeing him riding a bike around when I saw them in Mountain View, California on, was it Right Here, Right Now?
Was he riding through the venue, like through the seats, through the aisles?
No, just like riding around. I think it was him. Was it him? Or it was either him or what's his name was back with them by that point.
Not Rudy.
Rudy, yeah.
Wow.
It actually might have been Rudy, now that I think about it. Now, I've met Rudy. I met him at NAMM a couple of years a year ago. And he had some stories.
Rudy has got some. Listen, the deal, Rudy. Wow. I mean, even Greg Renoff didn't get. You know, he couldn't find Rudy. I think.
I've got his phone number.
Yeah.
You want to call him right now?
Well, I think Greg got his phone number too, but he called him and couldn't get it. You know, he never responded. Rudy is the guy that knows everything that everybody wants to know. Really, the majority of people that are chasing Eddie Van Halen's tone want what Rudy knows, and I have always thought or supposed that Rudy signed a non-disclosure deal when he left the employment of Eddie, and they've known each other for so long. You know, Rudy had he was like Eddie. He liked the Bolivian marching powder and he drank and partied a lot and you know, they parted ways. Rudy went on to work for Mick Mars and a couple of other people, but yeah, Rudy's the guy that really, well, Rudy and Don. It was Rudy and Don, and maybe I'm confusing that because Greg did get to talk to Don, but he didn't get. I don't think he got very much out of him. I think, or it was Rudy. I may be confusing Rudy and Don at that point.
It was Don. Yeah, I talked to Greg. I did one of these with Greg, and we talked about that. And
I saw that one. Yeah. But those guys are the guys that really know what the hell happened. You know, it's Don and Rudy are the guys that, you know, those guys can separate fact from fiction. They know what was going on with Eddie's equipment. You know, Rudy knows the equipment backwards and forwards, and you know, since the club days. And of course, Don is, you know, he's the guy to me that made the sound happen from the first album forwards, and he knows, you know, he I just don't. I think that both of them are not talking. I think they don't want to disclose any trade secrets, and you know, they don't want to say anything that's going to cause people to not buy any of Eddie's new equipment. You know, because frankly, if they came out and told everybody what he used on the records that people are really trying to get the sound from, i.e., the first album through 1984. You know, people would just chuck whatever's going on. You know, nobody would fewer people would be interested in buying newer EVH products and stuff like that, because they're no longer, you know, they don't have anything to do with what he used on the classic albums. You know, so that's a little I think, but I don't, you know, who knows? I'm just throwing spitballing there.
It's it's all the stuff he uses now. But yeah. So anyway, but yeah, that guitar pick you got though, the white one, the 5150, is really thin, right?
Yes, it's a Fender thin. It's a Fender thin, or it may be D'Addario. Either way, but it's like a Fender. It's like a Fender thin.
D'Andrea.
Is it D'Andrea?
Might be D'Andrea. I know his picks on the balance. Or I think D'Andrea's.
Yeah, my understanding is that he started using those Fender thin style picks. You know, whether they were D'Andrea's or whatever they were. Those picks he started to use on the 1984 tour. Before that, from Diver Down, you know, from the US Festival on back through the club days, his main pick was a Fender medium, and he used the brown celluloid tortoise shell type medium picks for all the albums going through. I think he may have even used those medium picks on the actual 1984 album. I'm not sure. He may have actually started using the Fender thins by the recording of the album, perhaps, or, you know, as a transition point, you know, I don't know. But then he used those for the whole 5150 and the OU812 tour. I think that he used basically the exact same picks, you know, just to, you know, just change the lettering on them. And then later on, he kind of, you know, changed and did some different things, and, you know, started using the, you know, of course, the EVH picks that are a little bit, you know, different material, and you know, this, that, and the other. But yeah. I don't know if you had anything to add about OU812. You know, I tried to hit some highlights of the songs and things that were kind of neat that jumped to my mind about that album.
It was the first CD I ever bought, and I bought a CD player just so I could listen to that CD.
Yeah,
I remember that. Couple other things. I remember the When It's Love video was all over MTV. They filmed that while they were on the Monsters of Rock tour. Like
Really?
they were on like a day off. They filmed that video, that music video. Yeah. Um, and then I remember waking up. I remember before I went to school one morning. This would have been late '88, early '89, somewhere. Turned on MTV, and there's a music video for "Feels So Good,"
Yeah.
right? The
Yep.
keyboard song,
Yep.
and Eddie's playing the Frankenstein, and
Yeah.
I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah.
I couldn't believe
Yeah.
it. Couldn't believe it to
Yeah.
see
Me
him
too.
playing that guitar again.
Yeah. Yeah. That was amazing. Feels So Good. Another great. I think it's a great, kind of a. I don't know how to describe it. I like that song a lot. I mean, I like songs that other, I tend to like some of the songs that other more, I don't know, hardcore metal Van Halen fans, would kind of dislike and poo-poo a little bit. But I think "Feel So Good's a great song. It's got a cool. Eddie had described it. He's always loved the Chris Stainton, the keyboard player with Joe Cocker. His playing on "Feeling All Right" was always something that Eddie really liked, and he had said that "Feels So Good," and and right now, that little keyboard lick that he did, those two things were sort of homages to the feel of "Feeling All Right" by Joe Cocker with Chris Stainton on piano. Those are really cool songs. I had mentioned that I had figured out how to play. That was the interesting thing I had mentioned before that some of you guys know. I had figured out how to put the string tree on my 5150 replica by matching the pitch to the "Feel So Good" recording, where he pinged behind the nut. So all I had to do is, kind of ping along, and I just slid my, I slid the string tree up and down until I matched the pitch, and then I made a little mark and drilled the hole, and bop, I put the string tree for the B and E string right on the money, and so when I ping across the nut, just like he does in the Live Without a Net, exactly, you got it right.
That part. I don't know if mine's in the same place because I didn't make this, but the string tree that he's talking about is this piece right here.
Yeah. Yeah, and in mine, it was a mystery to me because I thought, well, how are people even deciding where to put that? I mean, and people, I think, were just doing it visually. But for me, I wanted to be able to get the pitch right, and so it took me a little while to kind of figure that out. And I was like, oh, he does that on "Feel So Good." I can just match the pitch that way, and I certainly did, and it came out like right on the money. I was like, I can't believe this. And that I thought was neat. That, like, you often talk about being a Van Halen nerd. That was one of the nerdiest, weirdest things I've ever come up with. And I had posted that I had done that on Metro Amp Forum and VH Links, and people were like, "What is wrong with you?" Because I'd ask people, I'd say, "Well, how did you determine where do you put your string tree?" And everybody was just like, "Oh, well, I just put it wherever. I just kind of eyeball it, And I was like, "Oh, that's not good enough."
Well, there are some good photos though now of the headstock of the guitar, and
Oh yeah, I mean, you can do it visually, but to me, to actually get the right pitch was another thing entirely, and that's where I was like, oh, because my guitar is not, it's just black. My 5150 replica is just painted black. I don't do any of the stripes or any of that kind of stuff, so I didn't have any, I couldn't relate it to the stripes, and I didn't have any visual cues really. It's just a black background.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So to me, the important thing about my replicas was that I was trying to get it to be as physically identical to the real one as I could. Although now that's thrown out of the window because of that damn David Nesdahl and Paul Unkert, those damn guys. Because now I have a basswood. I used a basswood body, and now I've got to go get a poplar body, so I'm screwed.
I think mine is. I don't know what mine is.
I don't know what GMW used on their guitars. It's a good question. I want to say
what are some of the woods?
Well, I think they probably use swamp ash. Probably not northern ash. I'm guessing your guitar may have been swamp ash. Could be basswood. I don't think that the GMW guitars, I don't know, and I don't know a whole lot about the GMWs. I know like Ed Roman and GMW, were the guys that were making until the lawsuits started happening. They were the guys that were making the pretty accurate replicas like yours. And I don't know that at the time when they were making those that they had all the knowledge that David does. I don't think Paul Unkert was not talking that much. It wasn't common knowledge that Paul Unkert said, oh yeah, we were using poplar and I built that out of poplar. I know that for a fact. And so it could have been anything. My guesstimation on your guitar may be that it was a swamp ash. I mean, it's not, your guitar is not especially heavy, is it?
There's a little weight to it, but not really. I mean, actually, you can Google GMW 5150s and you can actually see what they used. Although a lot of them, I mean, they were basically custom guitars. They were built specifically for, like, people would order them.
Yeah.
And so I want that guitar.
Wood you wanted, yeah.
Yeah. So you could mix and match whatever, and so yeah. So mine was built for somebody, and I got mine used at the. You live in Texas, right?
Yeah, you went to the greater. Well, it's called the Texas International Guitar Festival in Dallas, right?
No, I was at the South by Southwest.
South by Southwest. Okay, yeah.
2009, because the band I was in, the Mayfire, we played South by Southwest. We played 2 shows, and then, like, the next day or whatever, I checked out the guitar show, the day that we didn't play, and saw this guitar sitting there at a booth, and it just so happened I knew the guy who was set up at the booth next to the guy booth that had this.
Nice.
So I knew the guy next door, and we made out a deal, and the guy in the booth next door drove this guitar back to California, and
wow.
I paid the guy who owned the guitar. He was from Seattle, from a store in Seattle, and so that's how I got it. I paid the guy, and then I went and picked it up in Oakland.
You didn't have to ship it. You didn't have to ship it. The guy drove it out there.
Right. Yeah, there was no shipping. So the guy in the booth next door drove the guitar back to Oakland, California, and I remember going over to his shop in Oakland and picking it up. 2000. Nice. This would have been 2009. This would have been what, South by is in what, March? So like maybe
me, I try to avoid that area as much as possible during South by Southwest.
Might have been April 2009. I went to
South by Southwest was in. I'm friendly with the guys. Well, I was back then. I was friends with the guys in the Flaming Lips, and back then South by Southwest was not a huge thing. It was still a relatively small thing.
What year was this?
92.
92. Okay, I knew some guys who played it in 90, 91. So I've known about it all these years.
Yeah.
But man, yeah, when I was there in 09, it was insane. It was insanity.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it still is now. It's more insane now probably because
it's a real mess
now because of Twitter and Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. It's so it's just too much for me to stomach. It's very hard to get around. For the residents of Austin, it's a mixed bag. I mean, it brings a lot of money into the economy and everything, but it's like, it's tough. I mean, it snarls up traffic, and my God, you just don't want to be there. And the same goes for the Austin City Limits Festival. That whole thing is a nightmare. There's so many great bands that play that show, but I just can't stomach going down there in the 100-degree heat. It's terrible. And when I was I have some nostalgia for Austin as it used to be, as does Kevin Dodds. Kevin Dodds used to play Austin. Well, Kevin Dodds went to school at University of Texas at Austin with his whole band. I mean, basically virtually his entire band that he had been with since he was like 11 years old moved to Austin, and they all went to the University of Texas at Austin. And so he consistently stayed with the same band. That's why Kevin's, they're all basically living in and around Austin, and that's how they continue playing together. But
for people who don't know who we're talking about, Kevin Dodds, a Van Halen connection. He wrote a Van Halen book.
Yeah, it's called Edward Van Halen, an Unauthorized Biography. I think it's the official title.
Yeah,
and it's great. it was
So-
a good. I know it was a resource for Greg Renoff when he was writing his book. Kevin did a lot of great research into their early family life and how his parents came together and in Indonesia and Holland and the whole trip and Kevin wrote it from a really neat perspective. Kevin wrote it from the perspective of a fan and from the perspective of being introduced to the band by his older brother who's now passed away and there's a lot of Kevin and I grew up really working super hard at guitar. Kevin can do a lot of things at one time. I just worked on guitar. Kevin was an A student like all through high school. I just showed up and just did what I had to do to make a C in everything. I had to work my butt off on guitar and Kevin worked really hard at it and he had a great band but he's a really neat guy and his book is really, really cool. It's not just a Van Halen biography in the sense that say Greg's book is. There's a whole other thing to Kevin's book. It tells some of the stories and stuff that's somewhat familiar to people, but I like the way that Kevin chose to write it. It's from a unique perspective, and it's a fun read. It's a cool book. But yeah, Kevin and I have known each other since we were 14 was when we met, and but Kevin played in Austin very frequently before Austin became crazy with the out of control industry presence and huge crowds of South by Southwest. He was playing in the great clubs on 6th Street like the Black Cat and the Steamboat, where the Steamboat was a great club that Stevie Ray Vaughan recorded a live radio broadcast from there in 1981 that was later released as an album called Stevie Ray Vaughan in the Beginning. And a lot of great people played that club. Antone's the club I think was still barely in existence back then. This would have been when Gary Clark Jr. was first coming up.
I played there. I've played at Antone's. Yeah.
You played at the old on 6th Street in Brazos. You may not remember the cross streets, but yeah,
I
that's
played
the original location. I think where you played.
I played there in 2008.
Okay, that would have been the old venue because the new one just now opened up. They opened up a couple of blocks away in a much larger, nicer venue with a different proprietor, but with the blessing of Clifford Antone's family and Clifford's wife. Clifford Antone was the club owner that began Antone's in Austin, and it's there's a great documentary you can search out about it. But Antone's was a club that was devoted exclusively to the blues and bringing the great blues masters to play in Austin at a great place where a lot of people appreciated what they were doing, and it was a club that brought out people like the Doyle Bramhall Sr., who was Stevie Ray Vaughan's pretty much co-writing, co-songwriter and main vocal influence, and the father of the great Doyle Bramhall II. And of course, Jimmy Vaughan and the Fabulous Thunderbirds and all the incarnations of all the bands that Jimmy Vaughan and Stevie Ray Vaughan played in, they all played in Antone's a lot. And this is where one of the clubs where Stevie and Jimmy would rub shoulders with the likes of Freddie King and Albert King, the real deal, and BB, Albert Collins. That club was the epicenter of what became like the blues boom of the 80s that was kind of spearheaded, popularly by Stevie Ray, but, has had a lot of ripple through music. The what happened in Antone's had a major effect on what, on the way guitar came to be heard from the, in the late 80s and onwards, where people, moved almost completely away from guitars like Eddie would play. The single humbucker Floyd Rose equipped guitar became sort of passe, and drier guitar tones and less distortion, more overdrive. That whole, there's an aesthetic that's kind of out there now that like you get from, say, Derek Trucks, an appreciation for classic rock and classic blues really blew up from that club, you know, and it's a really neat place. And they've come out with a new venue. The first guy that played it was Gary Clark Jr., and Gary was a young guy who Clifford put up on stage when he was super young, and Gary Clark was actually Gary Clark Jr. was a sort of a protege of, or he had the backing and blessing and encouragement of Jimmy Vaughn and lots of others, and that's kind of how Gary Clark Jr. came out, and he's fantastic. If people out there haven't already heard of him, but he's a great singer songwriter and a great player and a nice guy, and you know, Kevin can talk all day about the glory days of what it was like to play in Austin before all the crap came down with the South by Southwest. I played there only a couple of times, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times. I didn't play there anywhere near. I mean, his band was very successful in the Austin area, and you know, they're great. And Kevin's got a lot of cool stories about that. But
cool. Yeah, we should have him back on here sometime and talk about strictly South by Southwest. His experiences playing there. Yeah, I've only been. I've played Austin 2-3 times, something like that.
Yeah.
But hey, real quick, okay. Yeah, I do have to split.
Sure.
I have to drive up.
My daughter's still asleep, which is great. So, but she's going to wake up shortly, I know. So this is a good time to cut it off. I hope we got something out there about OU812 and some of the neat things that happened on that album. And
yeah. Well, real quick, some things that I know. Eddie's main guitar was the 5150.
Yeah, the last album where the 5150 was used to a great degree.
That was his main axe. He did have the Kramer 84 as a backup, but he never used it. It was there. It was there. There's actually a video where you can see Zeke holding the 84 saying, here's his backup guitar, you know. Let's see. Okay, Chris Hubbard. Okay, real quick, let's answer this real quick. What song do you guys like more? Sucker in a 3-piece or Source of Infection?
Between those two, that's tough to say. I mean, I don't.
You don't like either of them?
No. I like them both. Source of Infection. I mean, I kind of like. Again, that's another song that was sort of a repeat. It was essentially the Hot for Teacher kind of Get Up. You know, Get Up, Hot for Teacher, and Source of Infection are essentially the same piece of music. You know, Sucker in a 3-piece is the one that's it's sort of like Panama, as Eddie has said. It's a Panama beat. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't feel that strongly of one of those over another. I mean, I probably would say that I actually do like them somewhat equally. You know,
I like Source of Infection better myself.
Yeah,
I think I really like.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with you. And Sammy's vocal is incredible when they do that really super high Jimmy Page, Robert Plant vocal guitar dual thing where Sammy's just screaming really, really high. That's
something that's really cool. Solo. That's something that's really cool about that stuff. Yeah. Great song. Yeah. That's all great.
Yeah, I changed what I said. Source of Infection. There you go. I like that better. I agree with Johnny. So.
Cool. Okay, cool. This was fun. Great to talk to you, man. Thanks for jumping in. And yeah, like I was saying, you know, usually we've been doing these hangouts. We're trying to do a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at a certain time, you know, whatever. But you know,
yeah, my thing is hard. Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays are the days that I can do it. But I have to do it a little bit. I have to do it earlier in the day, you know, because I get my daughter at I think by like maybe 1 o'clock your time. So I kind of have to get with you at about maybe no later than like 10 or 10:30 your time, you know, to jump on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I know you guys are doing it a little bit later on in the evening.
Yeah, because Rob Johnson can't do them until a certain time, and so like we have different people on these things, and they can only do like this time, this day, this time, whatever. And so we tried to figure out times and days to do this or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, I'll try to, you know, basically what I'll do is what I've been doing, which is just you know, shoot you a message on Facebook and see where you're at, and if you're able to jump on with me, and I can hold forth about something or answer questions, or, you know, of course I like to try to, you know, demo licks and kind of talk about the, you know, the actual music and playing, although, you know, the sound quality is just, I can't believe how bad that Hear About It Later clip that we did. Oh my, just horrible tone.
mm-hmm.
But anyway, you know, maybe I'll try using a different mic, because I have like an adapter. I have a mini plug adapter that I can use a really nice mic in my computer. Maybe that'll help. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it has to do with the streaming.
Yeah, as we mentioned, yeah, the compression and whatever else they do when it gets squeezed for YouTube, you know, messes the sound up, you know.
Yeah, it's great for like talking to each other, you know. But yeah, music is where it goes into like a tube and a drain and goes underwater, comes back.
Yeah. Although you played a couple of chords, you played something, I don't know, maybe it was another video I was watching. You grabbed and played something, and I was like, God, that sounds great. I don't know why that worked. Maybe sometimes something good gets through. I don't know.
It depends on how you do it. Yeah, you have to fight it. You have to kind of know how to do it in a way.
Yeah.
Which I kind of know. I kind of know how to do it, but unless I do like an actual lesson video and I use the Hangout, I play. I usually don't play on these things. You know, I just talk.
Right. Well, Eric Broadbent had mentioned, I know we're going to go, Eric Broadbent had mentioned something that he had some kind of way to do. He had come up with some methodology for making the sound great when he's doing a live. I don't know if maybe he might be doing like his live Facebook thing, maybe. I don't know, but Eric, he figured out some kind of method for making it sound good. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, he explained it in one of his videos. It was for streaming on YouTube itself. So it's not a Hangout. So it's not like, it wouldn't be like this. We wouldn't be able to talk to each other.
Right.
It would just be strictly one guy sitting here, you know, playing.
Yeah.
And it sounded great. There was a little bit of a buzz. There was some noise, but it sounded good. Sounded good.
Oh, you're too kind. You're too kind. Well, you know, you know, next time I'll try to jump in and send you a message and see if we can you know, make something happen. I regret that I can't. You know, I miss Rob. It's hard. Me and Rob are ships in the night. You know. You know, it's like I'm the odd man out on the love triangle between me and David and Rob. So
yeah,
always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
It'd have to be like a weekend thing, maybe.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm able to do that. You know, when you know, that's also tough, because on the weekend, like, my wife will work on the weekend, and then I have to take care of my baby. And then it's very, very rare where my wife is gone and my baby's gone on the weekend, where I can actually sit down and do it. But I, you know, whenever I can, you know, I try to make it happen, because I enjoy being on here, and hopefully I'm contributing to the conversation in some way, and putting some bit of knowledge, or helping to answer any questions anybody might have along the way. I kind of focus more on the playing, and, you know, David and Rob are the absolute, you know, some of the great masters of the replicas and the nuts and bolts of all the various guitars. I'll tell you a guy that I wish we could get back on, that you know, I'm a big fan of him, and that's Jim.
Oh yeah, Jim.
And you know,
he said he would come back.
Yeah, we got to get Jim back. He's such a great guy. I didn't get on when Jim was on, and I've known him through the forums for a long time. And as I always say, I was always a thorn in his side. But, you know, I've learned so much from Jim about the guitars, and you know, I can't. He's the ultimate. I mean, really, you know, David knows an awful lot, and him and Jim, to me, are really, they're pretty neck and neck on their knowledge. Those guys really know every single thing, and I know Rob has learned an awful lot from Jim, and Jim and Jerry Leica are you know, some of the guys, and then, you know, Nick is obviously a young guy who knows his stuff and has learned a lot from those other guys too. And yeah, those are some great guys. But yeah, I'll throw in a vote if you can, shoot Jim an email or something and see if we can get together with him or just get him on another hangout, because I'm a super big fan of him. Great, super great guy and super knowledgeable. I love that guy to pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe we can make that happen, like on a weekend, like a Sunday, or because when we talked to Jim, it was a Sunday.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're around on a Sunday.
Yeah, after church, I might be able to make that happen if I'm a good husband and my wife chooses to reward me by letting me be alone in my room, in my guitar room, and I would if Jim jumps on, I will move heaven and earth to try to get there and be on with him, because he's just fantastic.
Cool. Okay, yeah, Jim. Yeah, if you happen to see this. Oh, hey, Dave.
Hey, boys.
Dave, we're trying to leave.
Yeah.
Well, I just noticed he's still on, and the guys haven't started rehearsing yet, so I figured I'd jump on for a second.
Yeah, we were just about to jump off.
Okay. Do you guys want to talk? Do you guys want to talk?
Yeah, well, I was just saying to Johnny, and Johnny's got to go, but I was just saying to Johnny that we need to get Jim back on, because he's the man.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I wasn't able to get on when he was on there with you guys before, but I did see the chat after the fact, and I love Jim. He's so cool. I learned so much from him, and it's fun. It's fun to have him. I mean, he's a guy that I had chatted with and online a lot in the forums, and it was really neat to put a face with all of our words and stuff online, and he's super cool guy, and I'll try to do whatever I can do to be on whenever, if you guys can get him on again. And of course, I'll renew my appreciation and admiration of Andy Aladort. Man, if you can get Andy back on again, that was superior. I love Andy. He's the guru.
Are you awake, Dave?
Frozen. Yes, there we go. Oh, I bored him to tears. I talk too much. I swear. I have diarrhea of the mouth that puts people to sleep.
Gross. Okay.
All right. Well, yeah, we can sign off for sure.
Right, yeah. I got to get out of here. Yeah. I have an hour and a half I got to drive. Cool. Great talking to you, man. And yes, we'll continue this soon. Yeah, we'll get these other guys in here. It's all good.
Yeah, man.
It's a fun time.
All right, Johnny. It's good talking with you as always, and take care, and we'll chat next time.
Cool. Okay. All right. Well, I'll see you, man. See ya.
Cheers. Click.
David, what happened to you? Are you sleeping? Oh man. Oh, okay, David's gone. It's just me now, everybody. All right, I got to get out of here. Thanks. Well, hey, yeah, I figured we would talk about OU812. I know some of that had nothing to do with it, but it's all good information, It's all good for everybody. Oh, he's back. Dude, I'm trying to leave. You just wake up?
Huh?
Alan, you passed out after he was.
Sorry, my phone died.
Oh, man. Cool.
So Alan's gone?
Alan's gone. Now we can actually talk about the real stuff. No, he was talking about South by Southwest and Austin, Texas, and Stevie Ray Vaughan, and nothing to do with OU812 at all. But but it's all good stuff. We need to do separate hangouts for, do like a Kevin Dodds South by Southwest thing separately.
Yep.
It's all good stuff. We just have to organize all the stuff.
Sure.
But any closing thoughts on OU812?
Great record.
Yeah, it is great.
Great record, great songs, great memories.
Yeah, because we were kids.
Yeah.
Whoops. When that came out, I was a baby.
I was 18.
So, yeah, you're a bit older than me, but yeah, I had a paper out. I remember listening to OU812 brand new when it came out, I had a paper route at that point. So I used to go out and listen to the albums. I listened to all of them, of course.
Mhm.
I do have a lot of memories of listening to Women and Children First, like in the snow. You know, I'd be riding my bike in the snow, 5 a.m, carrying big bundles of papers on me, and listening to Women, Children First, Fair Warning, all of them, all the albums up until OU812.
Right.
You know, but yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. I remember folding the newspapers at this. There was this elderly woman, older woman. Well, this was 88. She would have been 88. She was born in 1900.
Wow.
So she was one of my customers on this paper route, and she used to let me fold my papers either on her porch or in her living room, and she would let me watch MTV. So I do have memories of watching the When It's Love music video because it was on all the time
Yeah,
back
well,
then, 88.
it was. Yeah.
You know, so I do remember many times sitting there folding the newspapers, watching that music video. You know, it was unlike these days where YouTube, where you could pull up anything right now. You know, we could watch that video
Yeah,
right
it's
now if we
crazy.
wanted to. You know,
Yeah.
but back then,
That's crazy.
that's why there's no memories of anything now because everything happens so much. It's like nonstop. You can't.
know, I
remember,
can't
you
believe-
can't remember
I can't
anything now.
believe- I can't believe that you guys were still on because I only went on to watch the video, to watch this video, and I'm like, I can't. Why? How's it get me to this point? And I'm like, oh man, they're still live.
We're still here, and there's people looking at us. Thank you for watching this
holy.
stuff, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for if you dig the video, please give it a like. That helps. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
Subscribe to
Yeah,
the channel
please
if
do.
you really dig the stuff, because you'll be alerted every time we publish new stuff. And we like talking about this stuff. The guitars, the effects, I mean, not just Van Halen, although that, you know, a lot of us a lot of
ends
us
up
know each
being
other
that way.
because of Van Halen, you know.
Yeah, it ends up.
And it's a lot of stuff to talk about, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
information that people dig. So cool. Okay. All right, I better get out of here. I gotta split. I gotta go. All right, David Nesdahl. Great to see
Hey.
you, man. And I don't know if you're gonna be
Same
around.
here.
Are you around? I'll call you.
Yeah, I'm around. I'll be around until about 5 o'clock. Then I'm going out and
Okay.
I'm gonna have some dinner.
All right. Yeah, because I've got an hour drive I got to do right now, and
Yeah.
I'll
But
get.
I'll be home tonight too. I'm gonna try to get an early night's sleep because I have my surgery tomorrow morning.
Right, man. Yeah, we all wish you the best, man. With that,
Thank
I mean,
you.
that's
It shouldn't be bad at all. You know, for those of you who don't know, I'm having cataract eye surgery tomorrow, and I'll be able to see all y'all much better right after. But it's about 15 to 20 minutes, you know, in and out, pretty much from what they tell me, and looks like I'm going to be out like a light, so I don't think I'll feel it. But no, it's a little scary. I'm a little apprehensive, but it'll be all right.
I mean, they said that they do like
Yeah,
100 of those a day or something.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So that's
it's crazy.
So that's good news. Kenneth has a little story here, real quickly. Kenneth says, "I remember riding my bike to school and listening to 5150 and OU812 on my cassette Walkman."
Oh wow, I remember having those.
Yeah, for those of you who have no idea what a cassette Walkman is, it's that thing that Marty McFly stuck the cassette in, and basically he woke up his dad with the Eddie Van Halen, you know, riffs.
And for those of you who don't know who Marty McFly is,
everybody knows who he is, man. He's the reason I play guitar. He's the real reason. I've listened to those albums in all speeds, from normal to really slow, because of the lousy batteries.
it's very funny, but that's the truth.
Well,
Those batteries ran down real fast.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, for me though, I'm running this through a mixer. I always had those Tascam 4-track cassette mixers,
4-track,
right?
4-track, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to play these cassettes backwards all the time. I've heard all these songs, frontwards and backwards, slowed down, sped up. I've heard them all every which way. You know, because I'm a fan. You know, Not just that stuff, but of music
Yeah.
in general. And
Yeah.
so you can get different perspectives on things when you. And I've discovered a lot of cool stuff too doing that. A lot of weird, you know. I probably heard that one song years before anybody else did. The Tora Tora,
Oh
where
yeah,
it's
sure.
backwards. I heard
Mhm.
I heard that flipped around back in the 80s. You know, that's how I knew how to do it when I did that lesson on it. That's how I knew it because I'd heard it all those years before. So cool. All right, thank you guys for watching this. There's a fly flying around, so I got to get out of here. It's
Is
almost
it a
noon.
McFly?
Yeah. Oh, McFly? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's Big Fly. Big Fly. Slacker.
All right, dude.
Cool. I'll give you a call in a few minutes, man. It's 2:00. It's 2 to noon here, West Coast time, and I have to get out of here. I should actually be out of here in like half an hour. Is when I should actually just be gone. I have to put the chickens away. If you notice, I'm still wearing the same shirt I wore yesterday. So I gotta go. I'll call you. I'll call you when I'm in the car.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. I got a few things to say to you, man. All good stuff.
A couple of choice things.
Yeah, a couple choice things. So cool. All right. Well, don't hang up. Well, I'll talk to you right now.
Yeah.
All right, Johnny Bean, JohnnyBean.com, David Nesdahl. Thanks for watching the stuff. Like, share, subscribe if you dig it. We have a great time doing it. Today was an off day, but we did this because of the anniversary of the album, 28 years, OU812. Rob and I might be back tomorrow night, doing something. And yes. All right. Bye.
See ya.